Most people don't realize it, but they are handling type 2 diabetes all wrong. And if you watch this video, you can be one of the few people that actually treats this disease and not just the symptoms. As of 2023, almost 1/3 of all Americans have some form of diabetes, and most don't even realize it. How did we get to the point that over 130 million Americans have this disease? Well, for the most part, it all started in the 1960s. It was a simpler time. Americans were buying fancy cars, moving to the suburbs, and the number of people experiencing the American dream was on the rise. And unfortunately, type 2 diabetes was also on the rise. This is a video from 1959 that shows two people meeting with a dietitian to learn how to manage their diabetes. The man was being told that he needed to lose weight in order to get his body back to a place where it could function properly. And listen to what he's told about what would happen if he lost weight.
Let's take two diabetics, for example, one fat, one thin. Now, if we make this fat one lose weight, then his body will require less insulin to keep it going. And we may then find that his pancreas can keep pace with his requirements and his symptoms will disappear.
What the doctor is saying is true. Losing weight can cause your diabetes symptoms to go away. But as you're about to see, not all changes are created equal. And there is a difference between treating symptoms and treating a disease. Unfortunately, most people don't understand what that difference is. People have been focused on treating the symptoms of type 2 diabetes instead of treating the actual disease. Type 2 diabetes manifests itself when there's too much glucose in the bloodstream because it's not able to get into the muscle cells. This is because something called insulin is needed to tell the muscle cells to open up and accept the sugar that gets dumped in your blood after you eat. Most people think that the solution is simply to lower the amount of sugars in the blood. This is why you see so many trying to treat diabetes by going on diets like the Atkins or keto diets. These diets focus on fats and elimination of carbohydrates in order to reduce the glucose levels. But what you're about to see is that these diets are not the real solution. It's sort of like driving the car and your gas light comes on. At this point, you have two options. You can pull over to the nearest gas station and fill your tank, or you could get a piece of tape and put it over the warning light, and then just keep driving until you run out of gas. This is what most people are doing when they start following the latest fad diets to manage type 2 diabetes. Just like your car, you can coast for a while, but eventually you will run out of gas. It's just a matter of time. The real issue with type 2 diabetes is not so much that there's too much sugar in the blood, but it's that the body is resistant to the glucose because your receptor cells are blocked, and therefore the glucose can't get into your cells. Your cells have something called insulin receptors, which are like a lock. And insulin is a hormone, like the key to the lock, made by your body to alert your cells that there is sugar in the bloodstream and that it needs to open up and let that glucose in. But unfortunately for most type 2 diabetics, these receptors are blocked, so they're resistant to the insulin signals not opening as it should. So the question that begs to be answered is, how did these cells get blocked up? And how do we unblock them? The answer lies in looking back to the 1960s once again. So what happened in the 1960s that caused so many people to develop diabetes all of a sudden? The answer to that question is simple. Convenience happened. And not just any kind of convenience, delicious convenience. McDonald's happened, Burger King happened, pizza happened. And so did delicious and convenient processed foods, along with all these delicious saturated fats. This is a little something that we now know as the Western diet. And all of these delicious conveniences brought type 2 diabetes right along with it. Saturated fats are found in all of the foods that we love so much: the burgers, the fried chicken, the fries, the pizza with extra cheese. All of these foods that make up a large portion of the American diet is full of saturated fats. And when those saturated fats get into the stomach, they eventually get into the blood. And when they get into the blood, they get into the cells. Then they block the insulin receptors and your body can't process all of the glucose that's floating around in your bloodstream. What most people are told when they develop type 2 diabetes is to stop eating carbs, so there'll be less glucose in the blood. And the belief is that this will make the problem go away. But this is just putting a piece of tape over the warning light, because the fats are still clogging the cells. The real solution is to get the unhealthy fats out of the blood so that it can start processing all that lovely glucose again. This is why diets like Atkins and Keto can be so dangerous. Yes, they do give you temporary relief from the symptoms of diabetes, but these diets are just not addressing the disease itself. The sad thing is that often people are told they can eat as much fat as they want and they'll be fine. So they start frying more chicken and bacon, eating more burgers, without the bun, of course. And then they end up with the dreaded keto breath. Meanwhile, their cells are getting more and more clogged, making their diabetes even worse. And there are studies to prove this. This is one of those studies showing two groups of people. One cut out carbs for 2 days, and the other increased dietary fat for 2 days. The group that cut out fats actually had a lower sugar level than the group on a high-fat diet. The group that lowered fats and still consumed carbs actually had a lower sugar level than the group on the high-fat diet. This was just one of the many studies that we have had for almost 100 years, showing that the right way to deal with type 2 diabetes is to focus on treating insulin resistance by lowering the amount of fats we wear and the fats we eat. But unfortunately, most people are not aware of this, and they're continuing to eat their way into a worse state of disease by reducing carb intake and taking medications that reduce the amount of glucose in the bloodstream. As time goes on, it's becoming clearer that the best solution to dealing with diabetes is to embrace a largely plant-based diet. But we'll get into more of that in another video. For now, consider the cost of convenience foods on your health and decide if the time and money you're saving now will actually save you in the long run. If you're currently on a keto diet or considering starting one, you'll want to tune in for our next video, where we'll dig deeper into this diet and review what the evidence has to say about whether eating this way will help or harm you. Until next time, like, subscribe, and share this video.